everyone, this is the Pusang Pinoy Sit One channel. Here with none other than Christian Halaguena.
Hey, how are you doing, man?
Good, thank you. Please introduce yourself. What do you do?
So I'm Chris. Most people just call me Chris. I pretty much do photography, videography. I work with different brands. But yeah, so pretty much been doing this for the last, three-ish years.
Yeah.
And so I run like workshops, run a lot of events around Sydney. I've got a big community around Sydney from a creative standpoint. Really nice ride so far.
Of course. And you were telling me before you used to do videography when you were younger and then you got back into it.
So I've been shooting, basically I've been shooting for a long time, right? So like ever since I was a kid, I was shooting on film.
Yep.
Then, obviously life gets in the way. Just started to pick up a camera back in 2023.
Yeah.
And it kind of just went from there. Started shooting straight and evolved from there. Started doing portraits, started creating videos for, like I said, the different brands and building community from there.
In the last 3 years, how have you found the difference between the creative ideas between the Philippines and here in Australia?
Right. Before I moved here like 20 years ago, I was working in advertising and marketing. There's a massive difference in terms of the stylized look. Back in the Philippines, everything was, pretty much stylized, right? But here it's a bit more, I wouldn't say authentic, but more raw. So when you put advertising together, it's pretty raw and it's pretty close to real life. The second difference really is the tone of voice that you'll actually see or hear. Like for example, when you see creators here, they're very, I guess the word is intentional, where they take their time going through like different processes or different ideas, where in the Philippines it's all about quickness. So that's the biggest difference when you're looking at here and over there.
So it's basically, in Philippines it's more about speed, but here it's more making the most out of your time.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you work with a lot of different brands. One of the current brands is that correct?
That's correct. So I'm a low-mix creator, so I do a lot of events, workshops, content for them. I've worked with multiple brands in the past. Currently, obviously we're being lit up by June. Work with Digital, work with the big camera suppliers. It's basically my clientele is more brands, so those are who I pretty much work with on a regular basis.
Yeah. Since coming back into the last 3 years, how have you found the current range of possibilities?
I'll compare it to music because I'm pretty old now, right? When you look at music back then, it was hard to produce. So, but now when you look at it, people in their bedroom can pretty much just put stuff together. It's the same with regards to content creation or photography or videography, because now, with all the tools that are available to you, I've started to see brands focus more on pretty much attaching themselves to creators rather than spending it on a traditional marketing budget. That's the biggest difference that I've seen so far, which actually is good for everybody. It just means that there's more opportunity out there.
And how have you found this? I personally have found the old school way doesn't resonate true anymore, but how does it feel for you? So I'll explain what I mean. So back in the old days, it'd be like, if you're going to be a photographer, hone your skills and that's it, you're going to be a good photographer. But these days it doesn't resonate true anymore, because you can go from doing photography to doing videography to doing content creation such as what you've done. Do you still believe in people should stick with the linear, or should they be adaptive?
Yeah, it's actually interesting that you mentioned that, because I literally just put out a piece of content that's similar to that. The way I look at it is brands nowadays, or anyone in general nowadays, they're pretty much looking at that adaptability, being able to go from one discipline to another, right? So I always tell other creators when they do ask me, I always tell them never to devalue themselves. If you go down a path and you stick down the path, that's great, right? If you wanted to go down just photography, that's great. Or you wanted to go down even more specific, let's say street photography or portrait photography, that's great. But one of the things that I always teach everybody is don't limit yourself, because we're multifaceted, right? I don't just like photography. I like cars, I like watches, I like all this other stuff. When I was introducing myself, I'm not just a photographer. I do marketing, right? So I'm the head of marketing for a business here in Sydney. So I do that. I do strategy, I do photography, I set up events. I do the content creation. So it's not really, the way I would put it is that I'm like a strategist with a camera, if that makes sense, right? So what I tend to do during my workshops is I'll build out the structure first, right? But I always read the room, if that makes sense, because like I want to be able to give whoever's there the most out of that, because most of my workshops are like what, 2 hours long. Being able to fit all of that information into 2 hours is actually really, and then you have to shoot. You want to shoot as well, right? So what I kind of do is I try to read the room. Do I keep on going? Do I shorten it? Do I make it more interactive? Or do I go like, all right, let's shorten it and I'll do one-on-one? So like I always try to tailor it. So like I said, I'll start off with a structure, but I'll always change it depending on, like the mood of the room. So I guess that's just my experience having done this for 20 years, like in marketing and advertising. So I'm able to just adapt whenever I need to.
Just being honest with my audience, I haven't attended these workshops yet, but I'm looking forward to attending one of them. So I like that kind of style because for me personally, being able to have the adaptability rather than some people might be more advanced than others, or some people might pick it up quicker. You're able to adapt that, so that's really good.
Yeah, for sure, and I think that's important because, like, especially when you're within the community, I want to be able to be as approachable as possible, especially during doesn't matter if it's my workshop or not, right? Like I get a lot of messages, people asking me questions, right? I'm literally just answering the questions that people ask me. So the content kind of comes organically. It's literally just an extension of that conversation that I had, let's say 2 days prior. So, I'm always trying to give people more of that one-on-one sort of like interaction rather than, hey, you should try this. If you want to get more followers, follow these 3 steps, right? So everybody does that, but it's more important for everybody to be able to see, feel, be able to, make mistakes along the way, right? So and I try to provide that environment.
Thanks for answering a lot of the questions so far. I'm sure you've answered some of these questions I'm about to ask you on your videos, but just so we can get more of a here and now answer, what do you find that the younger generation, the young influencers, what are their top 3 things you find that they're missing in trying to tell their story, so to speak?
Yeah, I wouldn't say missing, I would say more clarity, if that makes sense. So like, I see a lot of creators when they're putting something together or when they're, creating their videos, it's more important, the gear's great, but story trumps everything, right? So being able to actually do that first and think through that, it actually improves you a lot more because being able to push out, a viral piece of content, that's great, right? But, what happens next is the thing that I always ask. It's not just about the one thing, it's that consistency that you need to be able to do. So that's the other thing, is that, the younger creators, they need to be able to keep on going, experiment, practice, and if it doesn't work, you learn from it and you just keep on going, right? And then, the last thing I think, not that, again, not missing, but just thinking about what you really want to get out of this entire thing. Because do you want followers? Does that actually pay the bills? So do you want to earn money, right? So the biggest thing as well, right? So at the end of the day, all of this, it's a business. We need to be able to think commercially as well, not just from the, hey, I got 1 million views. Yeah, that's great, but does that actually get you anything? Yeah, so those are the 3 main things that I always kind of pretty much gets missed sometimes. They'll have 1 out of 3 or 2 out of 3. If you do all 3 of them and you think about it from that perspective, you know where you're going.
Yeah, and also talking about what you actually love.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, my grandmother always told me, if you love what you do, it's not work.
Yeah, exactly.
Views or likes and all of that, at the end of the day, it's superficial, it's top level. You need to be enjoying what you do to begin with. You need to have fun because otherwise it'll just be a grind.
Yeah.
Just enjoy the process more than anything.
Yeah, thanks for that. Advice would you give for people just starting out who maybe don't have the following yet, but they believe that they have something, they really believe in it, for approaching brands to work with?
Don't think about what you can offer. Think about what they need, right? Because like, what can you offer them, not what you can offer as a creator. Yeah, you know, like if I say like, yeah, I can do 15 videos, I can like this because I've got 100 followers, I can do this and that. It's not about that, because like I said, I'm a marketing manager, right? So I always look for creators for the brands that I, that I manage.
Yeah.
So really what I'm looking for is always being able to see if that person or that creator understands what I'm trying to do. So it's more about that, their needs, what they're trying to accomplish. It makes your life easier because like you tailor what you're trying to do based on that.
Yeah.
Because like when the brands see that, oh, you're right, you commercially know what you're talking about because you understand our needs. Because look at it, at the end of the day, you're an agency working for them. So you need to be able to provide them a service that they would actually want. I've always kind of said to different people, like, you know, don't start when you're ready, start when you're crap. Because like, if you start when you're ready, how would you know that you're ready?
Exactly.
Right? Because you didn't go through the process. So you kind of just need to get yourself out there, see what works.
That's really good insight, and thanks very much for that. We know that you work here in Australia, you work with Lumix and other brands and stuff like that, but is there any for you, because I have audience here and also in the Philippines, is there anything we don't know that you have in
the Philippines? But look, in terms of like from a content perspective, I literally just put it out there, and my goal is always to, it doesn't matter where you are.
And the reason why I was asking, just to give you a bit of an insight and audience insight, is I've noticed that the Western feel of a film or even a horror movie, for example, is different than in the Philippines.
Makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah.
The way I kind of see it is, you know, like there's top layer and then there's a story, right?
Yeah.
The story is good, it's always good. Doesn't matter what the top is. If the look and feel is very Western, where like pretty much lit a certain way or the pacing slower or whatever, that's very Western, right? But story first.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, you kind of just do you. At the end of the day, what I've learned is you can't please everyone, right? You know, like everybody has an opinion. As long as, for me, as long as I'm helping someone, that's what's important for me.
Nice. That's good. Thanks very much for that. And thanks for your time today. If anybody wants to get in touch with Chris, like I said, we'll put his socials on the video across all platforms. Thanks everyone. Have a good night. This is a Pusong Canoe Channel and enjoy it.